Now I can't believe you would do this to me. Well, maybe not you directly, but Invader Boy 71 in Mako powered game, and you know exactly what you've done. You watched my last video, the one on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade on the Master System and the ZX Spectrum, and you decided you wanted more. Invader Boy 71, well, what did he want? He wants me to play the 16-bit version because the Last Crusade also had a port on the Mega Drive / Genesis, depending on where you're from, and then Mako powered game wanted to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on the ZX Spectrum, just to see if it was anything like the original arcade game. So, once more, just for you, and I'm going to have to stop reading comments, so I'm going to don the fedora, pick up the whip, and go play some more Indy right after these. So to start with, I thought we'd stick with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but on the Mega Drive this time. It's a game published by Ocean in 1992, so a whole year after the Master System and a year before the NES, but a good few years after the ZX Spectrum and other 8-bit microcomputer releases. Now Ocean Software, I don't know what their reputation was like over the pond, but over here in Scotland, Ocean Software didn't mean a good game. It often meant a licensed game, and it often meant a bad game. Not always, so we will give Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade a fair crack of the whip here. Now it starts pretty much the same way as the 8-bit counterparts. It breaks down the levels into scenes and tries to follow the movie, or as much as it could follow the movie in an 8 or a 16-bit game, I suppose. And to be frankly honest, that didn't bode too well with me, because I was hoping that with the 16-bit game they would have moved away from the 8-bit counterparts and done something a little bit different. Now graphically it is head and shoulders above the 8-bit versions. It's 100 times better, or dare I say it, it's 8 bits better. You would of course expect better graphics from the Mega Drive port, but they've also done a splendid job when it comes to updating the gameplay animations. Anyone who recalls the 8-bit versions will know that cracking that whip off took a good 3 seconds. Well, thankfully in this Mega Drive port, Indy can whip crack away at the speed of light. Well, it certainly seems like the speed of light when you compare it to the Master System and ZX Spectrum, but as we all know, better graphics and even better gameplay animations don't maketh the game. So say it with me one more time, gameplay is king. So how is the gameplay in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade on the Mega Drive? Well, quite frankly, it's just as balls hard and filled from top to toe with the same cheap bullshit deaths that you saw in the 8-bit versions, which is the thing that I'm most disappointed about with this game, because with the 8-bit microcomputers and the Master System, the game was working with very limited resources, so it couldn't be that long. So to get some sort of value for money, they just reverted back to arcade cab logic and made the games incredibly difficult so you would get some replay value out of them. Porting the IP over to the Mega Drive, they had the opportunity to do something bigger, better and much more special. Now that's not to say I completely hated my experience. I did hate most of it, the gameplay especially, but there were a few bits and pieces that did put a smile on my face. And the first thing that put a smile on my face was that torch that you encounter right at the beginning of the game. This of course is a throwback to the ZX Spectrum port of the game, and perhaps it was nostalgia tinted glasses that made me smile at this part. There is also that dreaded timer from the Master System port of the game ticking away in the bottom left corner, but at stages during the game you can get pickups that refill that timer. Now from the little bit that I played, I think the timer just makes the screen go dark again, but to be frankly honest, I didn't invest a great deal of time into the game, so can't say that with full certainty. They did also add some interesting gameplay mechanics, such as using your whip to get across larger platform areas, and of course they added a minecart level which was, well, it was brutal, I'm not going to lie, but it was that level of brutal that when you finally worked out how to do it, you got a great sense of accomplishment from it. And then directly after the very brutal but sometimes hugely rewarding minecart section, the game continues not to hold your hand and leaves you with another problem to solve. This problem being stalactites that you can't crawl under. Now I don't know if the manual would have covered this or not, but you can actually punch these to death, so I'm looking at you, Chris Redfield from Resident Evil 5, it's been done before. After spending way too long trying to figure out how to get past this first stalactite, however, you're faced with another problem. A stalactite that continually pops up and down from the ceiling, and you can't destroy this one. Now if it was just a matter of timing, then this wouldn't be too bad, but there is another destructible stalactite just after this one and I couldn't quite get it. So this was a section of the game that I decided to call it quits. So all of this that you've seen here, both good and bad, is all just the first level of the game. Now the game does have 4 different levels, and no, before anyone asks, I'm not going back to this game to try and get onto the other levels. I'm certainly not going to thank Invader Boy 71 for making me play this, but I will thank him for taking away the curiosity for playing this game in the future. And now with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in the Mega Drive / Genesis done, it's time to move on to the ZX Spectrum and the Temple of Doom, as requested by Mako Powered Gaming. Now if you thought you didn't see a lot of the game when it came to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade on the Mega Drive, you're going to see even less of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on the ZX Spectrum. Now as I said, this game was requested by Mako Powered Gaming, and mostly just to see if it was just the arcade port to the ZX Spectrum, and this is exactly what it is. And if you've never experienced Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in the arcade, then I'm going to direct you to another channel just now, and that is Jay is Manchild. There will be a link in the description, including a link to the video in question, where you will get to see much more of this game played. The problem of course with the ZX Spectrum is, yes, it was a colour computer, but it didn't have multiple layers for dealing with graphics, so most of the time developers were either stuck with colour clash or they tried to go monochromatic. With the Temple of Doom, as you can see, it's black and white, monochromatic, but the problem with a game that they've made so busy and so monochromatic, it means you can't see much of what's going on the screen. Now I didn't play this using a joystick, and that was probably a mistake as well, because the keys are set for the ZX Spectrum. Now anyone who's never seen a ZX Spectrum before and has stumbled across this video, it's a microcomputer, an 8-bit microcomputer, much like an Amstrad CPC or a Commodore 64, and later on you had the 16 bits in the Commodore Amiga and Atari ST. So for a lot of us playing games on these computers back in the day, we used a keyboard rather than just a joystick. For reasons that are beyond me, however, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and the ZX Spectrum didn't have redefinable keys, which meant you had to take the stock keys. The problem with that, the fire button was allocated to the shift key, which is a really inconvenient key to use when you're using 4 other fingers for up, down, left and right. So it's without shame that I throw my hands up in the air and say I didn't get very far at all with this game, and even when I did see them in advance, I was fumbling for that fire button so many times that I was killed before I could even activate the whip. What I do want to say about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on the ZX Spectrum is it was a missed opportunity. Now don't get me wrong, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is not my favourite of the Indiana Jones movies. I would probably go as far to say it's my least favourite movie, and that's including the Crystal Skull. But rather than trying to port an arcade game, the ZX Spectrum could have done something different. They could have utilised the bar shootout scene in the cabaret at the beginning of the film. They could have even put in a section where you're skiing down a hill in that life raft. This particular section here where you're freeing the children, that could have been a third stage and maybe a boss fight to finish on. So again, it's another game that I'm not going to go back and play. I wouldn't recommend you playing the ZX Spectrum version of this game, but after watching Jay's video with the arcade version, yeah, give it a try on the arcade if you can get your hands on a ROM to play that, because it's much better suited to the arcade environment than it is on this 8-bit microcomputer. So again, I'm not going to thank Mako Powered Gaming for insisting that I'll play this game, but I'm going to thank him for getting it off my mind for a game that I should be playing. And now would probably be a good time too to end your misery and get out of this gameplay section of the video. So there you go my friends, that was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade on the Sega Mega Drive, or the Genesis if you're from across the pond, and of course on the ZX Spectrum, the Temple of Doom. And yes, I didn't put a great deal of time into either of these games because I really didn't want to. They truly are that bad. I mean, if you want to go out there and try them yourself, then you can let me know how you got on with them, because the interaction between you and me, well, that's what makes YouTube special. It does for me anyway. Well, except for when people like, you know, Mako Powered Gaming and Invader Boy 71 ask me to play a couple of games that I really don't want to do. So down in the comments, no more Indiana Jones games. Please, is that too much to ask? Anyway, if you're new to the channel and you're still here, well, a couple of boxes here and here, and they will lead you to other videos that you may be interested in. Thank you very much for watching as always, and until next time, of course, cheerio!